joining us today and getting treats. I roped Mary into Elena letting us do that since it's been a while since we've had in-person lunch and learns and that I've made food. So, and we also excitingly have someone to listen to other than me. This is Cody from Standard Process, and he is going to be talking about their supplements and immune health. So, Cody, take it away.
I'm not sure if I should stand or not or sit down, so I'm just gonna kind of hang out, and if anybody can't hear me, right? Maybe I'll walk around, and I get kind of anxious. I'm like, oh, okay, I gotta walk around. But just a quick background, show of hands. How many of you know where Standard Process is located? So a few people. So that's probably the biggest thing I want to talk about today is how local we are and how Wisconsin focused we are. When I first learned about Standard Process, that's literally about a year and a half ago I started working, but I heard about them about 4 or 5 years beforehand. Been in business for 90 years, Standard Process, and it's a third generation family owned company. It's in Palmyra, Wisconsin. So basically right down the street in the heart of the Kettle Moraine. That's probably the most amazing thing is that it's 1,000 acres of organic farm, which is a pretty rare commodity. You don't see a huge organic acreage, especially a supplement company that is focused around that organic acreage. And that gets into kind of the whole food conversation. Whereas when say you go down the street to Costco and you ask somebody, well, where do they get their supplements from or how do they make them? They don't know the answer. It's just produced somewhere. But Standard Process, we control almost every piece of the puzzle as much as we can. Now, granted, we don't like make our own fish oil, meaning that we don't extract the oil out of the fish. That's like Nordic and like Chilean waters. That's Alaska. They can keep the fish. We'll do the beer and cheese. But we do make the capsules. That's very unique. We have over 80% of our composition inside of our product grown from the farm. So if you see buckwheat, if you see even pumpkin or sweet potatoes or anything, we pretty much grow that, or at least 80% of it. Otherwise, if we have to source from another provider, we make sure that it's either organic or has to be USDA approved if it's a meat component. That's the one thing people typically notice pretty quickly about Standard Process is we like meat, or we use a lot of tissues. Or you'll see like a liver in there, you'll see maybe spleen, you'll see thymus. It's a very unique thought, but if you think back, we ate all those components and that wasn't foreign to our ancestors or even to our parents or grandparents. They ate liver all the time, but I can't tell you the last time that I had liver and onions. And I grew up in a hunting family too, where when we shoot the buck, we eat everything, whether it's the tongue, which is very unique too, and my family even made a joke that we had to drink the blood in order to be a real hunter. So not sure if any of you can relate to that, but that was kind of my background. So getting into kind of the whole food concept, I provided a little bit of an overview, at least talking about why whole foods are important, but there's a couple key influencers on health. One, genetics, lifestyle, where you live, but also what you eat. And you probably heard you are what you eat. Or if you're familiar with Jack LaLanne, he's famously said, if it tastes good, spit it out. Because again, if it is too good to be true, it probably has something that we're not familiar with. Now, diet remains kind of one of the leading risk factors in just the US. And then it also corresponds with hypertension or high blood pressure, body mass index goes up, overall weight, and of course, low physical activity. So lifestyle is all mixed into that. And smoking, now it comes more into vaping. I think that's more of the common trait now. I think smoking cigarettes is dying down, but vaping is going all the way up, especially in the younger generation. So that number probably will stay the same, if not increase. But that's not just a US thing, it's actually a global issue. So heart disease, stroke, diabetes, and cancers. And these are all fairly related to diet. If you think about what we put in our foods, or if you read labels, you'll see a bunch of big words that you probably can't identify right away, that your mom and dad probably didn't make for you when you were younger, or your grandparents didn't cook. And just a side piece of information, both my family sides are from Italy, and we actually cooked all real foods. We used everything from scratch. my grandma would have sauce on the stove for 7 hours, and I started cooking every Sunday. And that was a common thing. But now Chef Mike does all the cooking, and that's the microwave. Just based on how we're able to lead our lives, we're working 12 to 14-hour days. I mean, I don't want to go home and cook a full meal for the family. I can definitely relate to that. But that is kind of a scary thought. And even more scary is this information published in the New England Journal of Medicine. They can actually predict obesity as young as 2 years old. And that's terrifying, that we can determine the level of obesity as young as 2 years old. Contributing factors to that, definitely sugar consumption. And sugar's in everything. I don't care if it says tapioca, I don't care if it says cane sugar, I don't care if it says coconut sugar. It's still added, and it's not necessarily a necessity. It's way different than sucrose, like table sugar. But it's really not, because it still spikes blood sugar, and it still keeps you in this constant like fight or flight method of like digestion. Like, I don't know what to do, I should relax, should not relax. And if you notice, from the age of like, I don't know, 4 years old-ish to about 19 or 20, we have a pretty heavy peak. But then as you get older, you get wiser. Or maybe you're just not eating as much anymore. But sugar consumption drops at the age of about 40 to 50. I don't know if that relates to anybody here, but I know I used to drink Monsters by the boatload. A buddy of mine raced for Kawasaki, so he would just give me cases of Monster energy drink. I'm slugging them down like 3 a day. Then I started using BFCs. You know, take 2 of those down a day. Those are crazy. Another factor is we're not eating at home anymore. We're relying on, again, I guess Panera, right? I mean, convenience. But again, how many of us want to prepare meals and actually cook these meals in advance? Meal prep is a huge pain. Some people do it. I've now made a habit to do it. And it is definitely difficult. But you'll see the trend that early age, that was more common. And now you have microwave meals. You have pop-up places, Chipotle, or quote unquote healthier things, but they're still fast food. There's no way around it. And the secret or the answer is whole foods, just eating real ingredients. And if you can't eat real ingredients, try to supplement with real ingredients. And this is kind of what the body's meant for. So your microbiome, it's just like your overall all-encompassing gut modulator. It has to do with your immune system, has to do with your long-term health, and also your brain focus. And let's say that you're eating all the great ingredients and you're doing fruits, veggies, you're doing salads, you're doing chicken breast, or if you're a vegan, you can do chickpeas or any amount of jackfruit. We're still having a problem with the soil. And this was a study that was, or a data plot that was pulled from a science journal. And they found that there is consistent decrease of mineral composition inside of our soil, which then relates to our foods. So the minute you eat an apple, or let's say we talk about lemon, or even red pepper actually, vitamin C, a huge amount of vitamin C in red pepper. But then the other minerals and coenzymes and cofactors, they're not really absorbing into the red pepper because the soil is being depleted. I pulled magnesium out specifically because magnesium is known as a shortfall nutrient, but also because we live in a, how do you say, like a medical world of overly prescribed proton pump inhibitors, omeprazole, Prilosec, Nexium, for acid reflux. They actually sap magnesium out of the body, and one of the main side effects is bone deterioration. So the longer you're taking these PPIs or omeprazole or Nexium, the quicker you're kind of eating away at that tissue, because magnesium is essential for energy production, bone health. And it's dropped massively just across the board. And one reason, things such as NPKs or like Roundup or glyphosate, a very known herbicide. And they're great. They're great at a couple things. Let me outline them. Number one, great mineral chelator. It actually binds to minerals in the soil and renders them inert. It does a good job at that. So it kills off the nutrients within inside that soil for the plant that's growing, but it also acts as a natural antibiotic. Well, the good thing about antibiotics is it kills the bad bacteria, but what does it also kill?
Everything.
Everything, the good bacteria. So you're supposed to have this rich soil, and let me just point out too, the topsoil at standard process is not like this. It's not like this. It's huge. People come to our farm and they literally grab topsoil and they want to take it home with them because of how dense it is. And it should look like that. And that's another reason to why glyphosate is typically one of the worrisome herbicides, or basically the reason why we're having soil deterioration. Now, at standard process, we have 1,000 acres of organic farm, like I mentioned. We are 100% organic, which also means non-GMO. And we kind of take pride in that because a lot of our ingredients, a lot of our compositions are grown right here. So you know that what you're getting is actually 100% being absorbed into the supplement and also into your body. And common sense, this is also the Nutrition Journal. Food quality goes up and your relative risk of chronic issues go down. That kind of corresponds to you are what you eat. Eat good food, you're going to get results. So plants in general are magical, and plants mixed in with meats also are great. But the one thing that we're finding is that the American diet is shifting very heavily away from plants or their plant-like components. They're adding in something that looks like a plant just for color, but it's really not. The diet that we kind of look at that has a lot of clinical data on is a plant-based diet or the Mediterranean diet. We see that those help with fasting insulin, increasing the good cholesterol in the body, lowering bad cholesterol, affecting triglycerides, and having a positive impact on body weight. And I'm not saying that you have to go 100% vegan, because I mentioned before that standard process uses meat components. So this is just that we want balance. We want to increase fruits and veggies in our diet. And whether we consume them through a grocery store or through a supplement, there's going to be good positive benefits there. And most of us will just consume one thing, broccoli, and we're going to hate doing it. But where are the reds, where are the purples, the oranges? They all have hidden phytonutrients that we don't think about. And that probably is the one thing that I drill home right away, is when we look at the label of supplements, we look at the label and say, how much vitamin C is in there? How much vitamin B is in there? B1, 2, 3, 100. We want to see that number because we're so conditioned to seeing a statistic. But instead, we can't measure phytonutrients. We can't measure, I guess you can measure quercetin, but when you're eating ingredients, you don't know how much quercetin's in there. You also don't know what these other ingredients are going to do for you. And that's probably the secret in diversity. We want to change diversity, increasing the colors of our food so that we're getting a rich diversity of colors and benefits. This is an interesting point I wanted to include as well. This actually factors in things like ketchup and like jellies that are tons of sugar. And this plot was actually pulled from, I didn't have it on there, but it's a dietary guideline advisory committee. So it's like the main US regulatory like documentation of nutrients, I guess you could say, or nutrition. But they basically found that the average American consumes that 1.1 to 1.6 cups of veggies. But we want to consume a little bit more. Now, as long as you add one more in there, that can extend your quality of life and help to bridge those gaps. I'll fast forward one more here. So actually that was Ed Haynes before. I just didn't put the slide on there. Increased sugar, increased saturated fats, and increased sodium. Those are typically the things you're going to see in the American diet. We will not have a large amount of vegetables, which also leads to a lower decline or nutrient deficiencies in calcium, zinc, magnesium, like we talked about before. So even if you did get those nutrients in, maybe it's the soil that's causing the problem to begin with. So maybe we're not getting that in because we're not absorbing it, or the soil or the ingredients don't have those nutrients in there. And then just an overall recommendation for foods. And again, if you look at these and you think, I eat none of these or I eat all of these, you could be in good and bad hands. And that's kind of where you'll see liver, organ meats, beets, fish oil. And then you'll see that even for calcium, we're actually fortifying some of our nutrients. We're fortifying ingredients, or like shredded wheat will have calcium added to it too. And there's our shortfall nutrients again: magnesium, folate, zinc. So consuming just one serving is kind of the main focus. So if you can leave here today, just consume one extra serving, that will decrease your risk of all-cause mortality. So just how you feel, chronic health condition, just by increasing one serving would be the main goal. Whether that's through a supplement, whether that's through nutrition. In a perfect world, I want someone to go ahead and eat all those nutrients. I'd rather have you go to the store and purchase that. That'd be the main goal, is go out there and do it versus actually chewing up a supplement. Even if I work for standard process, I still prefer to get all of our nutrients in. But the secondary, I guess you can say, benefit is that we are whole food. So if you're eating our products, you're eating whole food ingredients. So that's kind of why, again, eat first if you can't, then supplement. Any questions so far? So I just wanted to overview this as it kind of comes and give you a background of why standard process. Now, the most common question I've been having right now is immune system, right? I mean, especially coming up into October, November, December, flu season. And even beforehand, how many of you went out and bought immune products when you saw the first release of COVID? Nobody, one person.
Sort of, a little bit more than what I normally do.
Okay. So we noticed the trend that people go out right away and purchase something, whether it was vitamin C or emergency, they would drink more orange juice. That was just across the board nationwide. People were very concerned. Now, whether you believe in what COVID is and what COVID is not, there is a general immune system concern across the world. So biggest thing is, how can we support the immune system? And I'm glad that you have those initial, I think else I made those up, those immune system things. Those are great precursors just to show you what ingredients we need and also what you can supplement with to support. I brought something called GI stability with me, and I'm going to transfer a slide here. And we'll go over kind of just, I would say, a smorgasbord of what we have at standard process that you can also use. I know you're also, and if you can keep me up to speed, do you get a predetermined like supplement allowance, or do they automatically give you like a set product?
It's a subsidy based on whatever you choose to buy.
Okay, so you have the option. Okay. Is there a most common, you would say, in the corporation?
Seems like a lot of folks are taking the Congaplex, that vitamin C, B, I don't remember what's all in it.
So immune system. Okay.
Echinacea is pretty popular,
Okay.
and turmeric is.
Though it certainly does cause an allergic reaction in people that are already allergic to ragweed, we found out. Which was fun. Yeah.
That was Congaplex, you said?
No, that was the echinacea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Being that it's in ragweed family.
Yeah.
That's why I don't get that one, because I'm
Yeah.
totally allergic to it.
Yeah, you see that problem.
Okay.
One of the things that I heard is help was what is it? If you go with cranberry juice, but it has to be unsweetened, so no ocean spray, because it destroys the health benefits. So if you can find anything from concentrate,
Sure.
and typically you'll find that in the organic section of grocery store.
Doesn't taste good either.
It's a little bitter, because it's kind of like the difference between like cherry juice and like cherry pucker. It's kind of got that,
Sure.
it's a little bit more concentrated, a little bit stronger. I mean,
Or Thanksgiving cranberries too, that comes in the slices, right? You get those there. People love those. I used to love them too. Versus the homemade cranberries that used to add a lot of sugar too, right? So I just pulled together just an overall encompassing factor of what standard process offers, but I want to drill down a couple of them and kind of tell you what I personally take. I think that will help a little bit too. So here's the overall, just like why. So it's not just immune per se, but it does have immune focus. And a lot of the names are kind of hidden in code. someone sees epimmune complex, maybe you can deduce that it is for immune, or immuplex, right? Immune. But what about conjuplex? The root word conja, congestion. So that kind of makes sense too. But cyruta, no idea. Hemp oil, that makes sense. Everyone knows about CBD and hemp, but there's differences between what you find at the gas station or bait and tackle shop to what you find at even standard process. D, that makes sense. Prima, that's a unique name, but EPA and DHA for your omega-3s, tuna oil, fish oil, calamari, cod. I mean, but some are like, you know, hidden. And I want to kind of break those down. SB Detox being one of them. It's known as a nutritional shake. It could be a meal replacement, but it's more so a detoxification product when taken in a large quantity. Some people just use 1 scoop a day because, again, it has pumpkin, oats, it has Spanish black radish, just great ingredients to support the system. More of a general shake, but not a protein shake. So I kind of want to put that into the thought right now is it's not a protein shake, more of an overall superfood shake. Next question is, how does it taste? Well, yep, not a delicious treat. So I always say too, if it tastes good, spit it out. It usually goes to show for almost all supplements, because they have to add sugar to these supplements, some way, shape, and form. Well, it has a very neutral, earthy taste, and that is kind of the best way of describing it. Someone's like, well, what does that taste like? I'm like, well,
Mushrooms.
Dirt.
yeah, like dirt.
It's like when you fall off your bike.
Yeah. You just take a header on the ground and yeah. And honestly, I don't mind it. I think it is a conditioning thing. And I think as we age and get more sophisticated, our taste buds change. And I know mine definitely have too throughout the years. I never ate the same foods I eat now. I never drank a lot of coffee, but now I drink coffee almost every morning. So I drink Monsters. GI stability. I gave you that handout, and the reason why is because we had the most data to show, and it came in a really beautiful looking pamphlet. But if you are trying new foods, if you are just wanting a single ingredient to support the gut, that would be GI stability. And the reason for that is because we have Collinsonia root, helps elimination, which is excretion of your feces. But also the 2FL that's in there helps support the microbiome. So again, some people react negatively to probiotics. It could cause some stomach discomfort. It could cause some stomach duress. Whereas GI stability is prone not to. It's not normal for people to feel really badly. So it comes in a wafer. That's the only downside. So when you chew it, someone asks, what does that taste like? Well, take a scoop of protein, put it in your mouth, and chew on it. It has a very mouthy, gummy feel. So people toss them into smoothies instead. Because once they're ground up, can't even tell it's in there. But this is kind of the one-stop shop, supports the microbiome, supports the gut. When you support the gut, you support the immune system, but also the brain connection as well. So these next two, epimmune complex and immuplex, have been our number 1, number 2 main go-tos outside of echinacea, which I couldn't find a slide on, unfortunately, because it's a little bit of a different company and they produce their own things. But epimmune complex, I say, is the dark horse. It has so much clinical background. And there's even a Canadian claim that states it reduces cold and flu symptoms. And that's pretty huge. So the minute you take an ingredient to have documented proof that it works is really awesome. So
Did you say Canadian?
mm-hmm.
Okay, just making sure.
Yep, Canadian claim, yep. In the US is a little bit different, but Canada's a little bit more lenient on what, I guess, over-the-counter things they can take.
Sure.
So I usually put that out there because to have some sort of documentation on an over-the-counter or just a supplement is massive. So let's say that you get sick, you're feeling a little weird. By taking up immune complex, it will reduce your cold and flu symptoms. You'll feel better and you'll recover quicker. And that's been just across the board from the doctors that have used it with their patients. They said exactly the same thing. Now, the main go-to has always been Immuplex. So for the first time ever, at least in the standard process world, Immuplex outsold Turmeric Forte. And Turmeric Forte, not necessarily immune-based, but it's one of the best products that we offer. But because of the recent immunocompromised times, Immuplex blew up. And this is a daily supplement. So if you're taking just one like multivitamin-esque product, period, it'd be Immuplex. That or Catalin, but Immuplex offers a lot of benefits that Catalin doesn't. I gave you some packets that have Catalin in it, along with fish oil, but Immuplex is kind of the combination of immune system focus, but also the Catalin combined. So I think just one and done, Immuplex might be the best option for immune system. If you have an acute or if you start to get sick, it could be Conjuplex, like you mentioned, or it could be Epimmune Complex. So those are the big takeaways. Get sick, Epimmune Complex. Want to avoid being sick or start to improve your immune system? Immuplex. And Conjuplex, like we said right here, this is going to be a short-term use. A lot of doctors have used this for years and years and years. The minute someone gets sick, they just chew up X amount of Conjuplex every hour that they're awake. So they might take anywhere from around 6 to like 40 different Conjuplex per day. And the next question that somebody had, I think about a month ago, was, can you overdose? No. It's really hard to overdose. And the reason why is because it's whole foods.
That's a different answer, though. You said it's really
Yeah,
hard.
and-
Okay.
I was gonna say, there's an R50 for everything.
Yeah.
And one every hour you're awake, anywhere from 8 to 40.
Yeah.
Somebody can't sleep.
Mhm. But yeah, dosing is all, it's random. I've seen crazy amounts of numbers. I've heard of doctors using the whole bottle too. So literally the whole bottle in one day. This doctor, I think it's Dr. Dobbins, before he passed away, said he took a whole bottle of Conjuplex when he was on the plane, took it in his hand, tossed them all down, which was just, I've never heard of that before. I mean, it's expensive. And he was still alive, so. And one of the hidden names, Cyruta, great for inflammation, even blood pressure support too. And it's a high concentration of buckwheat, which is one of our major staple ingredients of standard process. That and beet root, beet leaf. But buckwheat is kind of our hidden gem. And I always put it in there because one of the most used products, but just one of the most I would say unknown because of the name itself. If it just said buckwheat plus, that'd be great. And one of the main ingredients in buckwheat is rutin. And a lot of doctors use that for, again, cholesterol levels, but also blood flow.
Buckwheat's a good side dish. It comes out like rice, basically.
Okay.
Buckwheat is an excellent side dish.
Do you make it?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you get it from?
You can get it from this Whole Food store in Brookfield.
Okay.
Where they have these spices all in like almost like a candy rack. You scoop it in, you weigh it, you put it in a bag. Buckwheat with water, let it boil a little bit, and just let it sit. It's almost like a rice.
Doesn't it smell like hot garbage, though?
No.
I recall making it once.
No, I mean several times. It's very good. It's pretty good. It's very much. It's like rice. It's not real flavorful. And whatever you want to add to it, like in my case, I'll just throw in some crushed garlic. It's outstanding.
Yeah.
It's better than rice by far.
Buckwheat's like a lot of other cereals. It's pretty neutral.
Yeah, and pancakes. 'Cause I mean, I'm used to consuming it through like pancake batter. But besides that, yeah, never actually as a side dish. But yeah, it's one of our main grown ingredients.
It's real big in Russia. When they grew up in Russia, they're all natural stuff because they have such a food crisis. They just grow all their own stuff. And buckwheat is a real big health advantage.
It's good knowledge. Any questions so far?
There was something called protomorphigen
Yeah, promorphogen.
that seems like it needs some explanation. The name that fancy.
Sure. Let's go back to Immuplex. That's probably where you saw it.
That's the one.
Okay, so PMGs and cytosol extracts. And cytosol, if you're familiar with any biology, it is basically the slurry of ground up tissue. So again, like I mentioned, Standard Process is a tissue-based company. Protomorphogens are basically the DNA or the microRNA extracts of these tissues. So there's a patented process that Standard Process developed that we take liver, and liver has some sort of magic to it, whether it's just protein, but there's microRNA that is very similar to our personal liver. And that was the thought process behind it. I guess the quick way of saying it is like heals like. And protomorphogens are just like the extracts of these liver, kidney, thymus tissue. And that is like the smallest point that we're extracting out. Then what we're doing is when we dry out these components, whether it's an adrenal, whether it's a thymus gland, we then grind them up and we make a slurry out of them and we soak it. That slurry is then the cytosol extract. So the surrounding of the cell or surrounding the nucleus. It's a very unique thought, at least in today's side, but if you rewind again years and years and years ago, I mean, we used glandulars for a lot of things. And that's kind of been held true for the past 90 years. I'm glad you asked that though. It's one of the most unique things when people are not familiar with standard process. They're like, wait, you use like body parts? Like not human body parts. And they're like, oh, okay. Like, but it's animal tissues. So we're kind of keeping that tried and true. So next couple things would then be hemp oil. Hemp oil, everyone's heard of. That's one of the last things we're going to kind of touch on. Is there's a large difference between CBD and hemp oil. And just to make a blanket statement, CBD is 1 phytocannabinoid out of 100. Whereas hemp oil, if it's from a hemp seed and not hybrid with THC, it's legal to consume. And I think Trump signed the 2018 Farm Bill that made hemp cultivation and production and distribution legal. So we started growing it as well. So we're preparing for the long haul. But the hemp oil has a large amount of phytocannabinoids, so it supports the system and not a symptomatic approach. So people will take CBD if they feel like they have tons of anxiety, they want to sleep more, and they'll take a large amount. But you're just taking one ingredient. It's like if you solo out protein for a chicken breast. Chicken breasts have more than just protein. We don't think about it that way though. But that's also with hemp oil is that you get tons of different phytocannabinoids. Why limit to just one? If you get the entire benefit of the product or the plant, that is the secret. And that's kind of goes with the whole food-based nutrition. And last but not least would be omega-3s. We offer a lot of them, whether it's DHA, EPA combination, and then tuna chewable, calamari, and cod liver. The basic answer, if somebody asks me what omega-3s or what fish oil you should take, I usually ask, well, what do you eat typically? Why don't you fish? Okay, Prima, EPA, and DHA, because it's more concentrated. If you eat fish every night, maybe you can just do tuna oil. But studies have also shown that even people that eat fish all the time still don't get enough omega-3s, and it could be because they're massively inflamed from the other foods they consume. There's a bunch of reasons to why that might be the option. So you might still need to take omega-3s. And Fish Fry Friday doesn't count. So if anybody here indulges in Fish Fry Friday, no, you don't count. Yeah, you don't count because the beer is there, the fat is there, and you get tons of omega-6s to off-balance your omega-3s. And that probably is the biggest thing that we see is that most Americans have a lot more omega-6s than they do omega-3s in their body, which puts them in a massive inflammatory state, which can contribute to a lot of random things. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'll offer some free samples for those of you that want to try it. I know you brought in echinacea, but I couldn't find a slide for echinacea, but echinacea is one of our most unique components. I want everyone to kind of try that. So if anybody's open for samples, I'll pour them. Cool, let's do it.